In the original Dragon Ball, later Dragon Ball Z stories, and even modern Super as well as beyond related media, there was a plot mechanism that enabled quick and in later examples instantaneous healing, the infamous Senzu beans, as they were originally a simple concept but were later negated from importance and almost forgotten about within the Dragon Ball franchise. But the speculative scenario is this: whatever happened to the Senzu beans? The Senzu beans were originally something of a MacGuffin introduced in Dragon Ball to help Goku during the circumstances that he had dealt with against the Red Ribbon Army, as the beans themselves were a mystical item grown by the immortal god Korin. A lesser known fact is that Korin was known as an extraordinary martial arts teacher who, through technically unknown or unclear circumstances, first produced the Senzu beans. Due to Korin's experience with martial arts, he actually grew and kept the beans in his personal possession, and the existence of the beans were unknown to nearly everyone else except for a few others. Korin knew of Goku's potential and later gave him some of the beans, and as a result, Goku learned of the existence of the mystical Senzu beans. The beans themselves take an extremely long time to grow. A single bean takes a massive amount of time to produce. From information in the mangas and later Japanimations, the texture of the bean was mentioned to be similar to that of an underripe bean on a celery stalk. Yajirobe once mentioned that the taste of the bean is similar to fish. Once eaten, the beans are invaluable to the consumer, as fatigue or energy spent shortly before the consumption disappears. Their strength or stamina fully returns to them, and their ki or spiritual energy are completely restored. Due to the beans still being food, Korin once mentioned to Goku that a single bean can keep an average person without hunger for 10 days. Expounding upon the regeneration capabilities of the beans, they could heal all physical damage inflicted upon the user. Bruises, burns, lacerations, blood loss from battle, torn or damaged muscle ligaments, dislocated or broken bones, all with no visible signs that there were ever damage inflicted upon the consumer of the bean. Even life-threatening injuries can be reversed easily with the magic of the Senzu beans as mentioned. With a literal miracle food such as the beans, lore and details from Dragon Ball had it that since Korin was immortal, he could actually grow a massive amount of the Senzu and put them into storage. As per events in Dragon Ball, Yajirobe discovered the storage of the Senzu beans that Korin had and nearly ate all of it. Korin later found out about what had occurred and was furious, naturally because it had taken such an extraordinary amount of time to grow even just one bean. Also, according to speculations, the stockpiled beans probably took hundreds of years to grow. All of that was nearly gone. Mentioned through dialogue, overconsumption of the beans meant that the eater would be quote-unquote overstuffed, naturally in pain, almost torture from the bloated aspect of the bean's magical properties. As a result of the events in Dragon Ball, Korin was never able to stockpile the beans to the particular amount that he had prior to Yajirobe nearly eating all of the Senzu that he had originally grown. There were only examples of handfuls that Korin could give out when requested. The fact that the beans were always nearly gone was something that Korin never forgave Yajirobe for, and through the original Dragon Ball, on Dragon Ball Z manga, on Japanimations, it was mentioned multiple times, and even in modern media such as Super, what Yajirobe did was still referred to in dialogue-based examples in the animation. With the ever-increasing tiers of power displayed in Dragon Ball Z and even Dragon Ball Super, the levels of strength witnessed and achieved were beyond what was ever comprehended in the original Dragon Ball and later original Dragon Ball Z manga-based material. So the Z soldiers actually didn't use them because the concept of a Senzu bean had a fighter be restored back to full strength as well as full fighting capabilities. While it was used in later examples of Z, it seemed somewhat redundant because if a being of such power was restored to full strength, then wouldn't the fight be a longer experience as it was before the bean had been consumed? Yes, it was, but the descriptions had it that with circumstances chances ending the fight. As a prime example of such was Cell consuming the Senzu bean, but Gohan later using an attack of, at the time, unfathomable power to instantly and completely kill him, thus negating the Senzu bean's effects of healing. The beans would make miscellaneous appearances in modern Dragon Ball media, but the original premise of the beans would be something that was needed and later abandoned, but eventually brought back for a new interpretation.